All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another podcast of Bagradda. And as you can tell from today's topic, it's the World Test Championship review, more specifically, the World Test Championship final review, and more importantly, a review on South Africa's big win, on South Africa becoming first time world champions. This is only their second ICC trophy, and of course, the first major tournament in a sense that this is the first major world tournament win for them. And no one better to talk about this than Thanya Voor, best known as the Cape Town Cricket Queen. Thanya, thank you very much for being a part of today's show. And congratulations to you. Congratulations to the many South African fans who have been part of this big journey.
Yeah, thank you so much. It took a bit of a while for it to set in, but once it was kind of happening, it strangely it felt kind of normal because I mean, like I feel like a lot of us have felt that over the years we should have had more of these. So I don't know. Hopefully, this is a sign of many more to come, because a lot of the experts actually said once we get one of them, hopefully quite a few of them will follow. So yeah, the everything's been really great. Thanks.
One of the reasons for delaying this video or delaying this topic sort of was to intentionally let the weight sink in, like let the weight of South Africa's win kind of sink in, because a lot of fans, not even just South African fans, but a lot of neutral fans were really celebrating this moment. It was a big deal, and we saw a lot of that emotional celebration at Lords itself, with the players, their families, them uh, doing rounds of the ground, and all the crowd around them. It was an amazing experience just to watch that. But what was it like back home in South Africa?
So the players arrived in Joburg, and there was a lot of support there. I'm not from that area. I'm from Cape Town. I think they arrived last Wednesday, but like from everything that I saw, it was amazing. I think they went to the Castle Brewery afterwards, where obviously one of our sponsors, and there was a big turnout. There was a big crowd as well. Yeah, plenty deserved, for all of the players. Like there was a lot of support. It was a weekday as well, so for South Africa, that was quite a big turnout, I think. And hopefully, when we see them again playing at home, there will obviously be something for them at Newlands, although that's actually, I'm not even sure when the next test is going to be at Newlands, because there's not one scheduled. Um, so that's a bit sad. I mean, I feel like a couple of people have spoken about that. ABD as well. I saw something today that was posted 5 days ago. So I guess we're a bit disappointed that we're not going to have any tests this summer? Because I know that's quite a big talking point.
That's actually going to be one of our major talking points going in. But again, to just go over the final again, you mentioned in a video you released just before the final how Corbin Bosch could actually be a very good inclusion for the final playing 11. I personally would have agreed, because I've seen quite a bit of Bosch in person. I've seen him play a couple of seasons here in the GT20 because I live in Canada. I've seen him play here for a couple of seasons. And I think he would have been an excellent inclusion. But all in all, South Africa did go with a bit of an experimental 11 for that final. Wayne Mulder at three, and going with Lungi and Gidi ahead of Patterson. Is it sort of one of those things that you're glad it kind of worked out, but it could have gone wrong very easily?
You know what? It's that kind of thing where when we watched the first bowling innings for South Africa, it kind of felt like, oh goodness, this is exactly what we meant. There's not really that much happening. You look at somebody like a Corbin Bosch who can hit 150, he can bowl really good bounces. Immediately you start thinking, oh well, there might be some more weapons that's actually sitting on the bench. But the one thing that I have to say about Shukri Conrad is that every decision he's made thus far has somehow worked. I think a lot of people questioned, I saw in the media as well, they kind of had to explain Lungi, because Lungi hasn't played any tests actually kind of leading up to this. So I think a lot of people questioned. I also wondered about his fitness. When was it's England? You just saw now India versus England. It can happen that you have to bowl 20 Bumrah bowled 23, 24 overs in one innings. So I guess a lot of people wondered about that. But at the end of the day, like I also said, what a great day to be wrong. It's what we do. We're enthusiasts. We love the game. We want to get involved in the game. South Africa's never won. So obviously a lot of people have a lot of opinions because, we want them to win. But obviously happy at the end of it.
Looking back at this cycle as a whole, it was kind of strange because, like this one, South Africa aren't going to play a World Test Championship game for 8 months, as strange as it is, as defending champions. In the previous cycle, they didn't play for a good 6, 7 months. Their first test came all the way at the end of December. It was the Boxing Day test, I think, against India. So it was just one home series, and that's it. Then they have that series with the second string team or the third string team, if you will, against New Zealand. It was a very topsy turvy start, and Temba Bavuma, while he was supposed to captain from the very first game, he gets injured. He doesn't. He basically doesn't captain the first 4 games. So it's a very bizarre start to the cycle if you think about it. So the first one year, South Africa basically just win one game, and in the last 8 games they win seven.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey, one that's obviously been criticized by a lot of people. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, I think Kevin Peterson said as well, these are the games that we were dealt with. Again, a lot of us will question, why can't we play more test cricket? I'm from Cape Town. Whenever I go to Newlands, I never see it not being sold out. So don't tell me it's not making money. Is it a broadcast thing that not enough people are tuning in around the world? Maybe now, that we are the winners, people might be more interested in watching us. I'm not always sure. But look, I guess the other point is that because England, India, and Australia play each other so often, and it's only 2.5 years, it's going to be impossible for the rest of us to each play them. It's just not going to be possible. We're talking about 2.5 years. We're talking about, franchise cricket, ODI bilaterals, T20 bilaterals, test matches. Like now in England and India, it's over 2 months that takes up of the schedule in a year. So from a logistical standpoint, it's just impossible for all the other teams to each play the big three, which is something I don't think people talk about a lot. They just say, well, why don't we play the big three? Well, you know what? Find a time for me in the schedule where we can all do that. And I promise you, you can look at how the West Indies are playing against Australia now. We want to play Australia. We want to play England and India. But find some time in the schedule. Some people say make it 4 years. I'm cool with that. Make it 4 years. Let's see. And the other thing is the year that we did play India and England and Australia, or 2 out of 3 of them, I can't remember, we ended up in 3rd place. So it's not as if it's only because we played certain teams. The cycle before this cycle, we still ended in 3rd place, even though we played the big 3, so I don't know. I've made a couple of videos about that. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So
we
I
mentioned it
obviously,
on
I have my opinions.
we mentioned it on one of our previous podcasts as well. I think it was Michael Vaughan who made the statement that South Africa are kind of undeserved for making it to the finals after playing 12 games, which is absolutely absurd because it is not South Africa who are choosing to play 12 games, as you said. The big three are basically hoarding the entire schedule.
They're
They're
hoarding the
saying that
schedule. That's the phrase. Exactly. That's the exact phrase. Yeah.
they're saying
And
that
nothing
earlier
against
it was
them.
just exactly. Like earlier, it was just a 5 match Ashes, and that's it. Border Gavaskar was 4, Pataudi Trophy was 4 matches. All of a sudden, all of these matches or all of these series are supposed to have 5 matches. That is absurd. In a 2 year cycle, it's not even 2.5 years.
Yeah.
It's now literally just 2 years. In a 2 year cycle, you cannot afford to have
Basically,
the big
two.
three playing against each other in a five
When?
match series. That is absurd.
When? Because the ICC tournaments as well. This year we had the Champions Trophy. After that, in the IPL time slot, 2 months, nobody. It's like an unspoken rule. Nobody's going to schedule any international cricket in that time, and I'm cool with that. I don't mind that. I think the IPL is very important for international players to develop their skills. They get to play in India for 2 months. I'm obviously for that. Then you've got the summer, which now who's playing? England versus India. End of the year, who's playing then? Oh, Okay, it's England versus Australia again. So, and then you've got a World Cup beginning next year as well. T20 World Cup 2027. We've got the ODI World Cup. Every country has their own franchise, which they need to accumulate money to keep cricket going. Not everybody is as rich as the big three. So there's so many factors that when people like Michael Vaughan say stuff like that, it really annoys me because I just feel like you should know better than to just say stuff like that, because it's not just, oh, why don't you? There's a lot of reasons why we don't. And I promise you, we all want to. Yeah. So hopefully, I don't know, hopefully we get the message out, people understand a bit more, but sometimes I just feel like they don't really understand the whole story around it. And look, I love the Ashes. I watched every second of India versus England right now. I love it, but it's difficult for the rest of us to find time to play the big three.
Absolutely. And coming back, like again, as someone who's always enjoyed South African cricket, South Africa being my second favorite team growing up, and Bangladesh being literally being my team, I cannot imagine Bangladesh and South Africa playing against each other in a 4 or 5 match test series, because all of a sudden that is not lucrative. If we're going to talk about what's
Mm.
lucrative for India, England, or Australia, we also have to talk about what's lucrative for South Africa or Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, because for us, all of a sudden, it's not lucrative to play against each other in a 4 match series versus playing against England or playing against India. That would be
Yeah.
actually lucrative. That is something we're actually looking forward to. So we need something that caters to us as well, because every team is supposed to participate equally in the World Test Championship, which is not happening. And yet the criticism is being targeted at the teams who have
At
literally
the
nothing to do
smaller
with it.
teams, yeah, it's always targeted, which makes it even more amazing that two out of the three times it's been won has been, not a big three team. So I think that makes that also kind of, it makes you think like, should there, but it's very traditional for those three to play each other, and there's like now it's the Anderson Tendulkar Trophy. South Africa used to. I remember back in the day, we used to have like all of these trophies as well. Like I know we've got one with India. I'm pretty sure it's the Mandela. It's the Freedom Trophy. We used to have all of these things with Australia. I don't know if it's since sandpaper that this thing doesn't exist anymore. But we used to play against Australia, big series, long series. But I don't know what. I also don't quite know how to solve it unless they make it a 4-year thing instead of a 2.5 year, because they're not going to drop the Ashes. They're not going to drop this trophy that's happening now, Anderson Tendulkar, and they shouldn't. The BGT, they shouldn't, because it's amazing. Like I said, it's drama. It's cinema almost. But yeah, where can we find room for the rest of us? I guess that's the question. And
It's
then
kind of
people
funny
shouldn't
that you
judge
mentioned.
us.
Kind of funny that you mentioned the what do you call that, the sandpaper gate incident, because again, South Africa are absolutely not the ones at fault. They had nothing to do with it. Yet they are the ones who are suffering from it technically, because that's what pulls the plug from the 4 match series between South Africa and Australia. We don't see that again.
It's interesting, yeah. Well, Australia, they're coming around. Is it next year? I think. I think it's next year. So next year we've got a very busy summer. I'm pretty sure we're playing Australia three test matches. Look, there's one thing that Michael Vaughan said as well that I do actually agree with, is that people should at least be playing 3 matches. And I agree. I think my honest opinion is, do you really need more than 3 matches? But then, you're going to have your purists and that. But he also thinks that only 5 matches should count towards the points. Because they feel it's unfair that they play so many matches against each other, but you don't think it's unfair when your bank accounts look the way that it looks, right? So there's that argument. You're getting a hell of a lot more out of it than you're portraying. So he was saying that, maybe only 3 of those matches should count, which I also think, yeah, that's a good idea. But how do you decide which 3? How do 2 teams come together and Australia and England decide, oh, okay, do you know what? In the Ashes, only these 3 matches are going to count. So it is a bit of a problem. But so this cycle, we are playing Australia. but we can't play Australia every cycle. I guess that's the moral of the story, is that it's not going to be able to happen every 2.5 years. The schedule just will not allow it, and they have to understand it. It's partly their fault as well. It's not just our fault, you know. But yeah, Test cricket in other countries. I'm looking at the West Indies match now earlier, and it's quite empty. And I understand it's a weekday, but how do you get, how do we get more people interested in Test cricket is probably the other question. I understand people have work, I also have work, but you know what I mean? How do we get, because it does cost money to do this, to organize Test matches. It does cost money.
Going back to, again, South Africa's successful World Test Championship cycle. Now, what happened in that second half was them really turning up especially from that West Indies series. That's where it started, 1-0 win in West Indies. But more importantly, I think it was the Bangladesh series, in my opinion, that was the turning point. Because previously, if you look at the last times England, New Zealand, and Australia toured Bangladesh, none of them actually left with a series win. All of them left with a 1-1 result, because Bangladesh can be surprisingly difficult because of some
Yeah,
of the
that's
pitches
what
we make.
makes all of these comments crazy as well, that people, the nothing comment. That's what I don't understand, because if I'm looking at your teams, I'm not seeing them. You know what I mean? So anyway, sorry. Yeah,
Absolutely.
continue.
No, no, no. It's a very valid point. And I think it is also a big part of the reason why England and Australia haven't toured Bangladesh even once in the 3 World Test Championship cycles we've had so far. It kind of
It
shows that,
can be a
the
tricky
mindset is
place.
there.
It
It
can.
is a
It
very
can be
tricky
a
place.
tricky place. I
There's a
mean,
certain level
I
of stress that
remember
you take for
being
India even
surprised.
that you cannot take for Bangladesh. I've seen that up close.
Yeah, I remember when we won that series in Bangladesh, I was actually surprised at, like, was that the first time or the first time in many years? I don't remember, but we made some sort of history when we actually beat Bangladesh in Bangladesh. But no, Bangladesh, it could be anywhere, you know, in the subcontinent can be difficult, because especially with Bangladesh as well, really great fast bowlers, really good spinners. Um, it can be tough. It can be tough, and it's also when the pitch deteriorates. We SENA countries are not used to that kind of turn. Even India struggled against Sri Lanka during the ODIs. Sometimes, and then you look at Sri Lanka and Australia, how that felt just kind of different. I don't know. The pitches felt quite flat. So you also don't know what you're always necessarily going to get. You think of Pakistan as well versus England. That first deck was an absolute road. And then bring in the fans. And then the last two, minefields of spin bowling. So no, I always think it's tough to travel. Some people say we need more points for away victories. I agree with that. I love that idea. Yeah. No, Bangladesh is not an easy place. I mean, otherwise a lot of us would have won a hell of a lot more going there, which isn't the case. Yeah.
But looking at that 6 match winning streak from Bangladesh to back in South Africa against 3 Asian opponents, in fact, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan, South Africa's batting never necessarily looked settled, in a sense that no one really had a fixed spot other than Markram and Bavuma. Everyone was being shuffled around, and they were still trying to figure out, to tinkle with the best possible batting order. And at the same time, they were winning all the games. And that's mostly due to the fact that, again, Bavuma and Markram were doing their thing. They were batting brilliantly, and as captain, Bavuma was fantastic. But more importantly, it was the South African bowling attack performing both home and away from home.
Yeah, there was this match in the West Indies, I think. This was one of the times where I also kind of criticized, because I remember, I think Shukri only picked 4 bowling options, and something about that pitch, I don't remember what location it was, but the way that it looked, I just thought to myself, you know what, I don't think we've got enough weapons to win this match. And then there's weather, and then there's everything. So the one thing that I feel like he's been doing really well is that he's always had the right roles for certain bowlers. Like You have, I think Nandre Berger played alongside Rabada. So those two were also at the top opening partnership. Then First Change would always be a guy who's incredibly quick. Nandre also can bowl a 150, but he's a left arm swing bowler. So whenever somebody got injured, he always made sure that, okay, we're going to replace that role with somebody with a very similar role. So even though the attack might look a little bit weakened, this idea of a B team, I felt like still guys came in that could fulfill the role, like we saw with Corbin Bosch, etc. So I guess that speaks about the talent that we currently have, which makes me very happy, because a few years ago, I thought to myself, like, maybe we might be going, like, when a guy like Dale Steyn retires, you're always a bit a Morne Morkel. We kind of thought to ourselves, are we ever going to get anything like that again? And now you've got Rabada and Janssen. So I guess we're very lucky in that aspect. And in terms of the batting, a lot of credit has to go to Shukri bringing in Ashwell Prince. All of the batters speak volumes about Ashwell Prince. What a difference. I mean, he was a class batter in also a variety of conditions. So I think Shukri just got the right people in. And sometimes it's what South Africa might have needed in the past was not the right players, but the right environment. So I feel like that's really what has been created with this management, this coaching staff, because we've always had the talent. Maybe it just wasn't the right environment. So hats off to them, because we had a lot of injuries at some point as well. We can't forget that. I think we had quite a few injuries.
One of the tougher decisions from Shukri probably was kind of pushing out Dean Elgar. Or that's what we were told from outside, that it was sort of pushed out before he wanted to retire. It turned out to be a blessing in disguise in the long run.
That's something I think a lot of us, we've all loved Dean Elgar, and somebody spoke about this the other day when we won. We can't forget Dean's innings against India at the beginning of the cycle, which was absolutely vital at the end of the day, because probably one of the biggest pride moments that South Africa has, that no other team has, is that India has never won a test series in South Africa. They've won all over the world. They've not won against us, and somehow Dean played a fantastic innings to keep that record well and healthy. Being pushed out, I also think you need to look at his age, and he's not somebody who played other formats for South Africa. He only played the test format, and unfortunately, because we don't play that many tests, it's a bit difficult, to make a career. Where Temba does play ODI cricket as well, it was tough to see him go, because I was a big fan of him. But how do you make a living if you play test cricket for South Africa and there's not that many tests, that's being played? So that was a tough one for, I think, a lot of people. But Temba came in. It was always going to be Temba's job next, right? It was just the moment of when. And so that moment came, and yeah, it's the same with the Klaasen thing now. People are saying Shukri pushed him out. I mean, I read South African newspapers. Unfortunately, people overseas don't get to read South African newspapers, but there was an article that Klaasen did in his native tongue, which is mine as well, Afrikaans, first language, where he spoke very candidly about it. And Shukri said that he was offered a contract that he did not accept. So maybe a similar thing happened to Dean. I'm not sure about the Dean Elgar thing.
This actually brings us to our next topic, which is, of course, the early retirement of some of the players, particularly Quinton de Kock and Henrik Klaasen, both of them retiring at the peak of their prowess. Uh, How much does that end up affecting South African cricket? And will this World Test Championship victory kind of be an incentive for players to not do that and to keep trying to push their way to play for South Africa for as long as possible?
I'm always a believer that nobody is bigger than the game. I will keep saying that. I think somebody like Virat Kohli, he broke many boundaries of the game. He's probably bigger than an era of cricket, very possible. But nobody is bigger than the game at the end of the day. And I guess with Quinton de Kock, it's something that I mean, he was very young. He was 31. And I also made a video on Instagram asking, maybe for some players, it's just too much of a burden. Maybe it's just too much to play for South Africa because we had this whole choker tag thing that's just left and right. It can't be easy, I think, for a cricketer, but this is something that you sign up for. You can think of all the hate that Virat Kohli has received over the years. This is what you sign up for. Unfortunately, am I saying it's right, it's correct for people to troll players? No, not at all. But this is the life. This is what's going to happen. In terms of players being inspired, I love the fact that's another reason why I love that we just won this tournament, because AB de Villiers also retired. We ended up making it into our first final. Klaasen, de Kock, they retired from Test cricket long ago. They retired from white ball cricket. Guess what? We just won the World Test Championship final. So at the end of the day, and one of the things that Klaasen actually said was that, quote, he didn't enjoy playing for South Africa anymore. This is something that people won't post on Instagram. They will post other bits about the interview that he wasn't offered a contract. I'm pretty sure he was offered a contract, but because of ODI or T20 matches or something that we're playing later on this year, white ball, he didn't want to play that. He wanted to play for Manchester Originals, the 100. So he put the 100 above the bilaterals. And look, you can't play 30% of the white ball bilaterals. You just can't do that. I don't think that's fair. We've got people like Dewald Brevis, Luandre Pretorius, a lot of guys coming through. It's a sad day for South Africa that they left, but there comes Ryan Rickleton. Here comes Dewald Brevis. South Africa will always have talent, and at the end of the day, it's their choice. But yeah, a lot of people very disappointed. I'm not going to lie. I'm one of them.
And I think the disappointment isn't even limited to South Africa anymore, because the global outreach, or at least the outlook on this, is quite negative, because fans want to see more of Heinrich Klaasen. If not in bilaterals, then at least in World Cups, at least in ICC trophies, which they know they will not be getting. And it's not the same in IPL, in CPL, in SA20. It's never the same, really. It's very unfortunate. But having said all of that, the SA20, like, again, it's a very newly established league. South Africa have always had a very good T20 setup. They've always produced talents for all formats. But how much has the SA20 really brought to South Africa now? And of course, it has the monetary impact from India coming in.
Well, I think they announced the T20 side this morning or yesterday, and a couple of guys that's in there that I'm really excited about. You've got Haba Peter, Ruben Herman, who plays for Paul Royals. He's another left, which I do feel like we need another left-handed batter in the middle. So, and then obviously you've got Luandre Pretorius, Dewald Brevis, Kwena Mapaka. I mean, the guy bowls, he's 19 years old, he bowls 150. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like a mini IPL, it's a chance for the players, because we are attracting some big names from overseas. You just look at that Mumbai Cape Town team, or is it Mumbai Cape Town now? Good, MI Cape Town.
MI Cape Town,
Yeah, MI Cape Town. Sorry, the IPL was long. Okay, MI Cape Town, and you just look at the stars. So it's good for the young ones to be in the same aura. I mean, Joe Root was playing with Luandre Pretorius. Look, we've been reaching a lot of semi-finals and finals ever since the SA20 was brought in. The other thing that I want to say is it's not just any person that decided that we should have this league. It's the great Graeme Smith. Now, I would trust South Africa's cricket with Graeme Smith. The guy himself has achieved so many things. I think it's done wonders for us. And what I like is that I don't see the T20 effect too much on our test cricket. which you can sometimes, I mean, I guess this is a topic for another day, but you can sometimes see um, that okay, you know what I actually want to say, which is really good, is that I think that because our pitches are very bowling friendly in South Africa, batters aren't going to just get away with swinging the bat, having a quick bat swing, that sort of thing. They still have to have a very good technique. And so these kids, these young talents, they get to face up against a Trent Bolt and they're being tested. You saw it Paul the first time, 20 overs of spin, which was tough for the batters. It's definitely preparing them for international cricket better than what our domestic setup used to do. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I've never been a fan of our domestic setup. I just don't think it's that great. Players aren't really being challenged. And the SA20 is really doing that. And obviously, yeah, it brings in money, which is what we need.
Moving over now, again, new cycle, everything's great. It's going to be very busy for South Africa, but that little odd timing of an 8 month gap in between, where they don't play any test series other than the one against Zimbabwe, which unfortunately isn't part of the World Test Championship cycle. A lot of the main team players are not going to be present. So that itself is going to be another bit of a bizarre experience in itself, I suppose.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, they went to Joburg, they met some fans. I think what would have been so amazing is that if they played a test match at Centurion, at Wanderers, one at Newlands, and then we could have had a whole thing. It would have been amazing. Everybody would have gone. By the time they play at Newlands again, it's going to be more than a year, and then people would have forgotten because look, we're a sporting country. Rugby is also a big thing here, and um, so yeah, it's very sad for me. The problem is as well is that the schedule was made before the World Test Championship final, so it's not as if we can now add matches. It's already a set schedule. Um, but the Zimbabwe thing is very good. I think it's great because a lot of young kids are, a lot of young talents are going to be. I'm very excited for the match to see how they play because Zim also has a great team, some decent batters, some really good bowlers, very a good amount of, Blessing for me is one of the most amazing fast bowlers out there. So it's good. It's good. The young ones with the seniors, that's how it should be. The seniors should help the young ones find their feet. And it's good for Zimbabwe cricket as well. It's good for us to play against our neighbors. And so I think that's going to be a fun little series to get some of the new guys in. But yeah, like I said, I'm disappointed because every year I go to Newlands and this year it's not there.
But good for Zimbabwe cricket, as you said, hosting a two-match test series followed by a tri-nation series with teams like New Zealand
Yes,
and
we
South
need
Africa.
more of that. We need more. I'm a big fan of this Tri Nation. I'm a big fan of that. So I feel like I was almost going to suggest earlier on how amazing would it be to do that in test matches where you've got three teams in one location. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the Tri Series and I think it's going to be great. Like I said, I'm excited about our squads, good mix of young and experience. So yeah, no, I'm happy with the state of cricket in my country. Despite the odds, you look at somebody like Temba, not a lot of opportunity growing up, but that's life sometimes when it's your destiny. You can't really go off your path if it's really meant for you in such a way that it was for Temba. So he will inspire. That's another thing that we need in South Africa is somebody like Temba, because in the rugby, we've got Siya Kolisi, right? So now every young kid wants to play rugby. So we've kind of been waiting for this moment to have this sort of like champion, this leader in the cricket to inspire the little kids to play cricket. Because I'm telling you, we're losing a lot of cricket players to rugby. I promise you, ABD also played rugby. Rabada actually played rugby until he was, goodness me, I think 13, 14 years old. And then somebody pulled him aside and asked him, do you want to try cricket? So we almost never had Rabada. Can you imagine?
That's one of the worries of a country which is so multidimensional when it comes to its sports, and it has so much to offer. South Africa has always been known for being South Africans have always been known for being these physically talented sportsmen who excel, who sort of seem to excel in everything. Especially when we look at it from our lens, we've always had that struggle going on in Bangladesh, trying to find that one sport that's best for us. Still trying, still hoping that something comes out of this. But
How are you guys in
anyways,
hockey? Are you good in
oh
hockey?
god, we used to be good. 70s, 80s, we used to
I
be a
feel
very
okay.
good.
I feel like my dad's mentioned to me, or maybe it was my grandpa, but I kind of linked Bangladesh. I know India play hockey quite well, but I've kind of
In
linked
India's national
Bangladesh.
sport is hockey, so the influence was there in Bangladesh as well. And as a result, we were
Not
pretty good.
cricket.
Again, 70s, 80s, we were pretty good. The problem is there's sort of a tunnel vision that's always going on with Bangladesh sports. We're not a multi-dimensional sporting nation. It's either this or that. When football starts getting a little more traction, it's always football ahead of cricket. Or let's forget cricket and let's focus on football. Why can't we focus on both of them at the same time? We
On
cannot
both
because
of
we
them,
cannot
yeah.
we just cannot. I don't know why we cannot. Even as fans, we cannot. As players, we cannot. So that's sort of a problem going on. But I hope we find at least one sport to excel in, and the rest will follow.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I feel like you guys are doing. I feel like you've got some really great bowlers. I'm a big fan of Tuskin Ahmed, Rana. He's also young and talented. Yeah, you've got some great bowlers there. Also,
By the
you're
time we
like
sort
you're
out
like
our batting,
India's team. You're India's team in World Cup events, aren't you? You're like the team like that kind of you've beaten India a couple of times in World Cup ICC events.
we're like the thorn in their step. Like again, they can beat us five, six, seven, 8 times. It wouldn't matter. We beat them once. It's going to be historic. That's what's
Yeah.
happened previously. They genuinely don't want to lose to Bangladesh, no matter what happens, because it throws off their equation completely. That's sort of the connection we've had to South Africa as well. We beat them in the 2007 ODI World Cup, and that kind of threw off their semi-final calculations because even though they did qualify, they had to face Australia, something they wouldn't have to do because they beat every other team in the Super 8s. But all of a sudden, they lose to Bangladesh. They lose to the one team that has zero other wins in the Super 8. Their entire equation goes off the
You
chart.
know what? I feel like losing against Bangladesh, fine, but like we also lose to the Netherlands more often than not. Well, at least our rugby they've lost against Japan. No offense, Japan, but that was a big day in rugby. I'm telling
I
you,
can
when
imagine.
Japan. Yeah, these things happen. It's why we love sport, though. To be honest, you love rooting for the underdog. Like I'm rooting for the West Indies here. Like I really want them to win.
Absolutely.
It's why we love it.
So I think it's fair to say that the current landscape of Test cricket or World cricket in general is finally starting to take slow and steady steps towards trying to rectify some of the things that they've done wrong. Finally, focusing a bit more on Zimbabwe, on Afghanistan and Ireland, the two newer Test playing nations, which absolutely did not get any attention in the last few years. All of a sudden, teams have realized, hang on, they're Test playing nations. We have to give them some time. We have to give them some game time, more importantly.
Yeah,
I think we're taking some of the right steps. It's still a long way to go. And I hope that while franchise cricket definitely does bring in its monetary values and some other values as well, as you said, it develops a lot of young cricketers. We still hope that uh, Test cricket or international cricket as a whole does prevail and it does remain on the priority
yeah.
list
It
of
has to
all
be
the
the number
boards.
one priority for me. And geez, I would love to see Afghanistan play more Test matches. I think their coach as well is very well set up to coach them. You know, Um, you can also see the way that they play ODI cricket. It feels like they'd be really, really good at playing Test match cricket. So it was really sad that the game rained out against New Zealand. I was very excited to watch that.
It was disappointing
But
because it
yeah,
wasn't even rain. It was just like 1 day of rain and 4 days of trying to dry
yeah.
the
Actually,
ground. It
it
was
was the ground, like the filtration systems or something that was just goodness me. Yeah, I remember I made a mockery of it. Now that I've that I remember actually. Yes, that was very upsetting, actually, now that I remember. No, I remember the small fans that they had there on. Oh, God, no. Now you're reminding me of something that was very funny, and hopefully that will never happen again.
Hopefully not.
Come on, India, do better,
Uh,
please.
Richest cricket board in the world. They can definitely do better than that.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
All in all, Tanya, thank you very much. This has been a fantastic discussion. And again, hoping that South Africa cricket continues like this. Hope to see them in the next final as well, as exciting as that may be.
Yeah, and it's in India. That's why I'm really excited. A lot of our players
But
play in
I think that
India
got cancelled.
regularly.
I think that got cancelled. The one in India, the proposal for India, it got cancelled, surprisingly.
No, man, the T20 World Cup is happening in Sri
Oh,
Lanka.
yeah, yeah, T20 World Cup. Yeah, yeah. I was
Yeah,
thinking of
yeah.
the
I'm
test
like,
final. Sorry. Oh, no, no,
no,
no. That is not
no.
can. That is happening.
I will tell you, I don't know. I have to say, the best place for me, and people can argue all they want, but the best place for me is England. It's the only place where you can get 4, 5, 6 days, 100%. I also think it's equal conditions for both teams. India losing there twice might not agree, but I think I don't even want it to be in South Africa because I just think it would be very unfair. Um, England just feels like the most neutral place. Also, England hasn't been in the final, so let's just keep it in England, you know? Um, yeah, excited for the next T20 for the World Cup. See, every year there's a World Cup. When the hell are we supposed to play the big three?
And I think the disappointment is still there a little bit for South Africa from what happened last time, how they had it in the
Oh,
bag.
oh, we are coming for
Mm.
India. See, that's the thing with Klaasen that just makes me feel like, because I've really felt like he was going to be a key cog in the wheel, of like what it would take. But then you look at somebody like David Miller, for a fact that a lot of Indians are big fans of him and wants to see him all around the world, I suppose, want to see David Miller win a World Cup. Aiden Markram hopefully is going to open the batting after his great IPL. I've been saying it from the start. He should open in all formats. And Shukri is the coach. Like I said, I know the environment with Shukri. It's very good. Players believe, and that's all we ever needed was just to believe. So I'm excited. Yeah, I'm very excited for that World Cup, and good luck to you as well. But I'm sure we'll chat before that again. It's
Of
still a
course.
while.
Little bit of disappointment with South Africa not having their best player of spin available for the tournament now. But
Look, Brevis looked amazing, and he was playing for Chennai. You're not going to get more turn than at Chennai, and he was whacking the balls all over the park. This kid works incredibly hard. He just needs some experience. I think he can do it. I
and
think
he's gonna have
he's
one more season. He's gonna have one more season with CSK if all goes well before
yeah,
the
yeah.
T20 World Cup.
I'm pretty sure the fans that I've seen how they freak out about Brevis and the management. I am 100%. I'm not somebody who bets money, but I would put money on the fact that he would be retained 100%.
Sonia, again, thank you very much, and looking forward to talking to you again maybe sometime soon.
Yeah, sure.
And
Thank you so much. Thank
thank
you.
you
It
to
was
our
awesome.
viewers as well. And for more, stay tuned to Backyard. Goodbye.